Welcome back, everybody. These are the best horror films of 1988. Let's see what's in store for us. These were the movies that scared everybody, audiences worldwide, and movie theaters, cable TV, TV stations worldwide. These are all the films. These are all the horror films that were released in 1988. All right, let's see if some of your favorites are here. Let's see if there's any that you don't remember. Some that you may remember but forgotten about. Let's check them out right now. These are the best horror films of 1988. Edge of the Axe. An axe murderer terrorizes a small Northern California mountain community, while two young computer-obsessed adults attempt to solve the killings. Edge of the Axe. That is the new movie title. 555. A psycho dressed as a hippie is killing couples in Lakefront. 555. Horror. Next up we have is 976 Evil. People who dial 976 Evil receive supernatural powers and turn into satanic killers. When Spike dialed 976 Evil, he knew it was an expensive toll call, but he didn't know that he'd have to pay for it with blood. Necromancer. Julie, a college student, is sexually assaulted by two fellow students. Desperate for revenge, she makes contact with a necromancer who begins using her for demonic powers to get rid of the people. They Live, one of the best movies of all time. They influence our decisions without us knowing it. They numb our senses without us feeling it. They control our lives without us realizing it. They Live. This movie is brilliant. Check it out. A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master. Freddy Krueger returns once again to terrorize the dreams of the remaining Dream Warriors, as well as those of a young woman who may be able to defeat him for good. All the Nightmare on Elm Streets are good because they're fun and they're just awesome. American Gothic. Slasher horror. After their seaplane malfunctions, a group of travelers make an emergency landing on an island in the Pacific and stumble across an isolated and psychopathic family. Amsterdam. Slasher horror. A hard-boiled police detective sets out to capture a gruesome serial killer terrorizing the canals of Amsterdam. Serial killer slasher horror. Apprentice to Murder. The small, beautiful Pennsylvania Dutch community is rocked by a series of bizarre events which lead to a web of deception, violence, and murder. Drama, horror, mystery, and thriller. Apprentice to Murder. Bad Dreams. Slasher horror. Lone survivor Cynthia on University Fields Colt's mass suicide wakes from a 13-year coma in a psychiatric ward, where other patients suddenly start dying under mysterious and gruesome circumstances. Black Roses. Demons hypnotize the general public by posing as a rock and roll band. Black Roses. Horror and music, featuring John Martin and Ken Swofford. Blood Massacre. A group of deranged Vietnam vets start a robbery and murder spree at a local store, and breaking into an isolated house, they take family hostage. Blood Massacre. Will not disappoint. Blood Relations. Thomas takes his beautiful girlfriend to meet his crazy surgeon father at a remote mansion, and things get out of control. A twisting ending that will make you love this horror movie. Blood Relations. Blood Delirium. After the death of his beloved wife, an unbalanced painter who believes he is the reincarnation of Vincent van Gogh freaks out and digs up her corpse with the help of his necrophiliac butler to bring her back. Blood Delirium. Bloody Wednesday. Harry is unable to hold a job due to his mental illness and lives in an abandoned Hollywood hotel haunted by the friendly ghost of the long-dead staff. Bloody Wednesday. Crime, horror, and thriller. Cannibal Campout. Slasher horror. 4 teenagers on an outing in the woods are attacked by a trio of mutant cannibals. I love it. Teenagers, a group of people. That's how it always happens. I love it. Captives. Three weirdos invade the home of a wealthy family while the husband is at work. They have not come home with the intention of stealing anything. They just want to show the wife a video. Drama and horror. Captives. Catacombs. A demon is trapped in a monastery. 400 years later, a young girl arrives at the monastery to study. Horror. Catacombs. This movie is creepy, featuring Timothy Patton. Cellar Dweller. A comic book artist, Whitney Taylor, is doomed to repeat history in a most grotesque way when she unleashes a demon after drawing it. Fantasy horror. Cellar Dweller. Cemetery High. Parody action comedy horror. A group of high school girls with guns go on a killing spree. They are intent on ridding the world of scummy men. Cemetery High. I love it. Cheerleader Camp. A group of cheerleaders become the targets of an unknown killer at a remote summer camp. These summer camps and cheerleaders and camp counselors and kids. I love it. Everyone dies. Slasher horror. Child's Play. Chucky. Slasher horror. A dying serial killer transforms his consciousness into a popular kids doll using voodoo. I didn't do it. Chucky did. Chucky. Critters 2, the main course. Eggs of the small but voracious alien creatures called crits are left behind on Earth and after hatching set their appetites on the small farm town of Grover's Bend. Critters 2, the main course. Crocodile Fury. Monica, a witch vampire, has the power to invade with vampires. They can destroy everything that exists on Earth. The situation worsens when Monica is working with Cooper, the master of the seas. Next up we have is Curse of the Blue Lights. A group of teenagers battle a horde of zombies and evil creatures that live underneath a graveyard. This movie is fun. Curse of the Blue Lights. You gotta watch it because we love teenagers, right? We love it. Curse of the Queer Wolf. After being bitten by what he thinks is a transvestite, Larry starts having nightmares about hillbillies, ominous visits from an old gypsy woman, and having the strangest reactions to the full moon. Curse of the Queer Wolf. Dawn of an Evil Millennium. Epic Super 8 short about a demon summoned to Earth who takes command of a souped-up 1970 Oldsmobile and goes on a road-killing rampage. Dawn of an Evil Millennium. Grave Robbers. The lonely waitress of a diner, Nora Mae Edwards, has dreadful nightmares and difficulties to sleep. One night, her new client, who is an undertaker, proposes to marry her immediately after knowing her, and Nora accepts. Zombies follow. Dead of Night. An abused woman conjures up a spirit to take revenge on the men who have misused their... I love how people try to get revenge and kill people in these movies. It's all about killing people. That's why we love horror. Dead Heat. A cop is killed investigating a strange case of resurrected corpses. His partner and a pathologist resurrect him, but he only has a limited time before he starts to decompose, and he uses it to chase down the diabolical men who killed him. Comedy and horror. Dead Ringers. Two gynecologists take full advantage of the fact that nobody can tell them apart. They're twins, until the relationship begins to deteriorate over a woman. Psychological thriller horror Dead Ringers. Deadbeat at Dawn. One last job separates the leader of the Ravens gang from an early retirement. When he finds his girlfriend being beaten to death by members of a rival gang, he seeks revenge. Deadly Dreams. Slasher horror. We love slasher horror. From the director of the highly acclaimed Body Chemistry comes a frightening excursion into terror. Alex is caught in the web of distrust between his brother and his best friend, beautiful stranger, and the renewed dreams of the slaughter of his family. Death House. A renegade federal agent uses a new drug to create an army of unbeatable warriors. Action, horror, and sci-fi. Starring Anthony Franciosa, Dennis Cole, and Ron O'Neill. Death Nurse 2. That crazy killer nurse is at it again. Edith Mortley continues to slay more and more dumbfounded patients, turning them into rat food. Death Nurse 2, slasher horror and horror. Death Spa, slasher horror. We love slasher horror. Gruesome deaths begin to occur at a hip Los Angeles health club. So if you like 1988 fashion trends and culture, pop culture, look at this film and take you back in time. Death Row Diner. A wealthy Hollywood tycoon is framed for murder and sent to the electric chair without the customary last dinner. Years later, he comes back looking for revenge, and he's hungry. More revenge movies from killers. I love it. Deep Space. A spaceship with a hideous monster with an incredible appetite for flesh crashes to Earth. B-horror, horror, and sci-fi. So if you like aliens eating people, Deep Space will not disappoint. This is 1988, mind you. Demon Warp. Bill Crafton and his daughter Julie are attacked in the woods by what they believe to be a Bigfoot-type creature. However, they soon begin to suspect they may have stumbled on a nest of aliens in a hidden spacecraft. Demon Warp. Demon Warrior. Slasher horror. A group of young friends go hunting during their holidays near a small town in Texas, where the father of one of them owned a piece of land, but the place has a legend. Slasher horror. Demon Warrior. So again, a group of friends. The Ogre. An American horror writer haunted by childhood nightmares moves to an old mansion in Italy with her husband and young son, only to discover the nightmares were real. Horror. The Ogre. Destroyer. Slasher horror. We love those movies. A prison riot breaks out at the moment of serial killer Yvonne Moser's electrocution, after which Moser is not found. 18 months later, director Robert Edwards and company arrived to film an exploitation film titled Death House. Dial Help. A psychic finds herself tapping into the energy of a deceased phone operator. She also finds that her friends soon begin dying mysteriously. Dial Help. This movie is creepy and good. Distortions. A man goes to speak with a gigolo and is promptly beaten for his trouble. Soon afterward, his wife is told that he burned to death in a car wreck and is shown the body, and that's when she starts seeing strange men at every corner. Distortions. Don't Panic. Slasher horror. On his 17th birthday, Michael unwittingly unlocks the evil forces of an Ouija board. Don't Panic. Supernatural horror. Slasher horror. Don't Panic. Door. Horror, mystery, and thriller. After several strangely threatening calls from a local salesman, a homemaker becomes increasingly afraid to answer her apartment door. Door. This movie is good. Check it out. Dr. Hankenstein. Dr. Hankenstein is a genial but somewhat misguided scientist. He murders the locals for their body parts, but it's not for power or scientific research. He just needs them to put his wife back together. That's gross, creepy, and it's a comedy. Dracula's Widow. The young owner of a waxworks in Hollywood receives 6 instead of 5 ordered chests with Romanian antiques. He does not know that Vanessa, widow of Count Dracula, sleeps in the 6th chest. This movie is creepy and good. Dream Demon. A young woman about to be married begins having terrifying dreams about demons. When she wakes, however, the demons are real and begin to commit gruesome murders. Supernatural horror. Dream Demon. We love Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark is a 1988 comedy horror movie upon arriving in a small town where Elvira has inherited a rundown mansion. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Next up we have is El Bosco 1, the story of a hideous monster who takes the form of a beautiful, seductive woman who, in a torrent of special effects, beauty and monster transform into a climax of pure evil. Flesh-eating mothers. Suburban housewives turn into vicious cannibals after committing adultery with a neighborhood womanizer. Satire, comedy, and horror. Flesh-eating mothers. I bet you didn't know about this movie, but again, this is 1988. Flesh Eater. A group of college students on an overnight hayride come across a group of man-eating zombies. They must fight for their lives while trying to escape and warn the authorities. This movie has it all. It's fun, it's cheesy, it's good. Frankenstein General Hospital. A mad doctor puts together a new body by using body parts he steals from a mortuary at the hospital where he works. Parody, slapstick, comedy, and horror. Frankenstein's General Hospital. Friday the 13th, The New Blood. We love it. Jason Voorhees is accidentally freed from his watery prison by a telekinetic teenager. Now only she can stop him. Slasher horror. All the Friday the 13th are awesome. I love this movie. Fright Night Part 2. 3 troubled years after the blood-soaked events of Fright Night from 1985 and countless therapy sessions, Charlie Brewster comes to terms with the freakish incident that scarred his adolescence. This movie is good. Ghost Town. Western horror. A modern-day deputy tracks an abducted girl to a ghost town and the spirits of the past who took her. Ghost Town. It's creepy, scary, and good. Ghost House. Slasher horror. Visions of a deceased girl and her doll bring doom to the visitors of a deserted house. Ghost House. Slasher horror. We all love slasher horror, so we check that out. Ghoulies 2. We love Ghoulies. The Ghoulies wreak havoc on an amusement park, disposing of those who mistake them for mere fairground attractions. Comedy and horror. Ghoulies 2 is a lot of fun, campy, and gruesome. Grandmother's House. Slasher horror. There's a lot of money to be made with slasher horrors. After the death of their beloved father, 2 teens go to their grandmother's house in California and begin to suspect their grandparents of murder. Graveyard Shift 2. A film crew making a low-budget vampire film is unaware that the leading man is a real vampire and has his sights set on the leading lady. Horror. Graveyard Shift 2. This movie is creepy and good. Check it out. Grotesque. Slasher horror. 1988 is a great year for slasher. A gang of crazed punks break into a family's vacation home in the mountains and slaughters the entire family, except for one daughter who gets away. Hollywood Chainsaw Hookers, or sluts, or tramps. A detective embarks on a mission to track down women in LA's seedy nightclubs, only to come face to face with bloodthirsty, cult, lethally beautiful prostitutes. Hack-O-Lantern. A kindly old grandfather is actually the leader of a murderous satanic cult which sacrifices its victims on Halloween. Hack-O-Lantern. I love the title, and if you like Halloween movies and Halloween, you'll love the movie. Halloween 4, The Return of Michael Myers, one of the best films of '88. One of the best Halloween films. 10 years after his original massacre, the invalid Michael Myers awakens on Halloween Eve to kill again. This movie was awesome. I love every bit of it. Hard Rock Nightmare. A child is convinced his grandfather is a monster and kills him. Years later, he returns with his friends to the site of the killing. It appears to be his grandfather's revenge as one of his friends are brutally murdered. The Headhunter. Miami cop Pete is having a tough time. First, he learns his wife is having an affair with another woman. They split up. Then, him and his partner, Kat, are pitted against each other. A shape-shifting voodoo demon. Heart of Midnight. Carol inherits a nightclub from her weird uncle. She moves into the place only to find out just how weird her uncle really was. Psychological drama and horror. Heart of Midnight is very good. Check it out. It's creepy. Hellbent. A decadent musician and a vengeance-bent housewife are drawn into a web of chaos and violence in the zany tale of good and evil, crime and punishment, rhythm and blues. Action, crime, drama, and horror. Hellbound Hellraiser 2. Christie is brought to an institution after the horrible events of Hellraiser, where the occult-obsessive head doctor resurrects Julia and unleashes the Cenobites and their demonic underworld. Hide and Go Shriek. Slasher horror. A group of teenagers spend the night in a furniture store for a graduation party. A psycho killer starts hunting them down one by one. Okay, let's graduate high school, but let's stay overnight at a furniture store. How good is that? Hobgoblins. A young security guard must track down diminutive aliens who kill people even as they make their fantasies come true. Comedy, horror, and sci-fi. Hobgoblins. I like that name. Hollow Gate. At a Halloween party, a young boy is almost killed by his drunken alcoholic father. 10 years afterward, the boy goes on a murder spree. Slasher Hollow. Hollowgate. I love it. I love it. Hollywood's New Blood. The ghost of a family accidentally killed on a movie set come back for revenge. I love these revenge movies. And then a group of teens, a group of hikers, a group of it's always a group of something. Howl of the Devil. Paul Nachi plays several roles in this film about nowhere actor who likes to pick up prostitutes, sluts, and whores and play sex games. Howl of the Devil. But it has a lot of monsters in this film. So if you like monsters, check out The Howl of the Devil. Howling 4, The Original Nightmare. A successful author moves to a small town after suffering a mental breakdown and is tormented by demons and werewolves. Howling 4, Werewolf Horror and Horror. Iced. Slasher Horror. A group of childhood friends. I'm laughing because it's always a group of that get killed. Friends are invited to the opening of a posh ski resort, unaware that an old nemesis has murderous plans in mind for them. Jack's back. I love this movie because I love James Spader. A serial killer in Los Angeles celebrates Jack the Ripper's 100th birthday by committing similar murders, and only one has a chance of stopping him. Jack's back. This movie is good. Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Aliens who look like clowns come from outer space and terrorize a small town with popcorn, spray guns, and cotton candy. I love this movie. Zombie 5, Killing Birds. Zombie 5, Killing Birds. A group of college students go into the woods to study birds. They encounter a strange blind man who's connected to the killer zombies that prowl deep in the forest. Zombie 5, The Killing Birds. We love it. Lady in White, featuring Lucas Haas. An author tells the story of how, as a young boy growing up in 1960s small town, he was haunted after witnessing the murder of a little girl. Lady in White is creepy. Lurkers. A woman is haunted by flashbacks of her dead mother and visions of dead people floating. Isn't that creepy? Dead people are floating. They're not walking or running, they're floating. That's pretty creepy. So check it out, Lurkers. Maniac Cop. A killer dressed in a police uniform begins murdering innocent people on the streets of New York City. I love it. Serial killer slasher horror. Isn't that sick though? And copycats can do that. Memorial Valley Massacre. Arriving at the newly opened Memorial Valley Park on its maiden weekend, the first group of campers, are terrorized by a primitive young hermit who begins killing campers in order one by one. Господин Oformitel. A famous artist strives to find the secret of eternal life through the beauty mannequins he creates. Drama, fantasy, horror, and mystery. So it's about mannequins. Monkey Shines. Very creepy. A quadriplegic man has a trained monkey helping him with his paralysis until the little monkey begins to develop feelings and rage against his new master. Monkey Shines. Night of the Demons is very scary and awesome. 10 out of 10. Teenage partygoers at an abandoned funeral parlor on Halloween night. When the evil force awakens, demonic spirits keeping them from leaving and turn the gathering into a living hell. Night of the Demons. Nightmare at Noon. Scientists poison the water supply of a small town, turning the residents into homicidal maniacs who kill each other and anybody who passes through. Nightmare at Noon, featuring George Kennedy. Not of this earth, not of this earth. An alien arrives on Earth looking to take human blood in an attempt to preserve his dying planet. Comedy, horror, and sci-fi. Now, why would a foreign planet want human blood? There's no humans in that foreign planet. Out of the Dark. Slasher horror. Beautiful young women who work at the offices of a phone sex company are being stalked by a psychopathic killer. I love all these psychopathic killers. Alright? But that was a slasher horror. Out of the Body. Horror thriller. Some gravity-defying being is killing women in Sydney, Australia, and removing their eyes. Out of the Body. Horror thriller. This is creepy. Killing people and then removing their eyes. Cameron's Closet. Monster horror. A father who experiments with his son's psychokinetic powers is unaware that these experiments release a demon from hell which lives in his son's closet. Cameron's Closet. Phantasm 2 is awesome. Mike, now released from a psychiatric hospital, meets with Reggie and discover his dreams are real, and they both journey to find to stop the evil tall man from his grim work. So I love it. Phantom Brother. Slasher horror. Look at the poster. A little bit of Jason, a little bit of Michael Myers. A teenager is left orphaned by a car crash that wipes out his entire family. He is subsequently haunted by his dead brother. Phantom Brother. Phantom of Death. Slasher horror. In Italy, a pianist suffering from the progeria genetic disease becomes distraught and goes on a mad killing spree, prompting a police inspector to investigate. Phantom of Death. Pin. Horror and thriller. Isolated by his strange parents, Leon finds solace in an imaginary friend, which happens to be an anatomy doll from his father's doctor's office. Unfortunately, the doll begins to take over Leon's life and his sister's life as well. Pledge Night. Slasher horror. A college fraternity in the middle of hazing their new pledges during Hell Week incur the wrath of a long-deceased pledge who died during a hazing gone wrong 20 years earlier. Poltergeist 3. Carol Ann is staying with her aunt in a high-rise building, where the supernatural forces haunting her make their return. Poor Carol Ann. This is her last film before she died. Primal Rage. A scientist at a Florida university accidentally creates a rage virus while conducting experiments to restore dead brain tissues in baboons. The virus soon spreads. This movie is good, so check it out. Prime Evil. A coven of devil-worshipping monks living in New York City search for victims for their sacrificial ceremonies. So if you like 80s fashion, look in the fashions, check out Prime Evil 1988. Pulse. A visiting son tries to warn his father and stepmother that they are being menaced by a living and intelligent pulse of electricity that moves from house to house and terrorizes the residents therein. This movie is creepy and good. Check out Pulse. Pulse Pounders, copycat movies. In this sequel anthology, the film offers a transfer sequel from The Evil Clergyman and The Dungeon Master, fantasy, horror, and sci-fi. Pulse Pounders, a series of short stories. Pumpkinhead, we love Pumpkinhead. After a tragic accident, a man conjures up a towering, vengeful demon called Pumpkinhead to destroy a group of unsuspecting teenagers. Splatter horror, teen horror fantasy, we love it. Ratman, a fashion model is murdered on the Caribbean island and her sister investigates with her friend Fred, uncovering a horrifying rat-like creature which Fred kills, but the true horror is just beginning. The Rejuvenator. A rich actress who has gotten too old for leading roles employs a scientist who is working on a formula for eternal youth. Look at her face. See how old she is? She wants to look young again. So that's a good makeup there, isn't it? Remote Control. So they like 80s technology. 80s technology. A video store clerk stumbles onto an alien plot to take over Earth by brainwashing people with a bad 50s science fiction movie. Parody, comedy, horror. Remote Control. Check it out for the 80s. Return of the Killer Tomatoes. Crazy old Professor Gangrene has developed a way to make tomatoes look human for a second invasion. Parody, comedy, horror, and sci-fi. Return of the Killer Tomatoes will not disappoint. Robo-Vampire. Seriously? Narcotics agent Tom is given a second chance at life after being shot and killed. In a futuristic experiment, Agent Wild is returned to life as an android robot. Rush Week. Tony, a journalist student, transferred to a new college where several female students begin to disappear under suspicious circumstances. Psychological thriller, comedy, and horror. Rush Week. Look at that movie poster. Santet. After poisoning his wife, a local gangster blames the village priest for her death and incites an outraged crowd to set fire to his cabin. Horror. Santet. Another great movie is Saturday the 14th Strikes Back. Eddie and his family have just inherited a spooky wreck of a house. What they do not know about the house is that it was built over an evil passageway, but they are soon to discover the wacky evil it releases. This is from Saturday the 14th, Part 2. Scarecrow, slasher horror. We all love slasher horrors. Criminals hijack a plane and force the pilot and his daughter to fly them to Mexico. However, an unexpected landing finds them in a cemetery inhabited by killer scarecrows. We love that movie. Scorpion Thunderbolt. An evil which seeks a magic ring which is currently in the possession of a mustachioed disciple of black magic. Meanwhile, a snake monster terrorizes the city of Hong Kong. Scorpion Thunderbolt. The Serpent and the Rainbow. This is pretty good. Fantasy and horror. An anthropologist goes to Haiti after hearing rumors about a drug used by black magic practitioners to turn people into zombies. This movie is creepy. Slaughterhouse Rock. A man visits Alcatraz prison after having dreams about all the people who died there. When he gets there, his brother is possessed by an evil cannibal demon. Slaughterhouse Rock. Comedy and horror. Sleepaway Camp 2 Unhappy Campers. A sex-change slasher returns as a camp counselor. Dark comedy, parody, and slasher horror. Again, killing a group of people. We love it. We love it. Slime City. A student moves into a rundown building in New York City. His bizarre neighbors make a concoction into their apartment they call wine, but when he takes some of it, he turns into a deformed, murderous monster. Slime City. Slime City. Slugs. Killer slugs on the rampage in a rural community. So, I guess these are like what? Snails or slugs? And they kill people. Really? You just can't step on a slug? But apparently these slugs kill people. So check out the film. You'll love it. Il Fantasma di Sodoma. This is obviously Italian. 6 teenagers are terrorized in an isolated villa by ghosts of Germans killed during World War II in an air raid while participating in an orgy. So this movie is actually pretty good. Sorority Babes in the Slime Bowl-O-Rama. As part of a sorority ritual, pledges and their male companions steal a trophy from a bowling alley. Unbeknownst to them, it contains a devilish imp who makes their lives a living hell. Spellcaster. A group of contestants travel to a castle in Italy to participate in a $1 million treasure hunt hidden on the premises. Little do they know the lord of the castle hides a deadly secret. Spellcaster. Spooky Spooky. Years ago, a village head into the Hong Kong countryside executed a man for committing adultery by drowning him in the oceans. One by one, the visitors die. Spooky Spooky. Dark comedy, horror. The American Scream. Parody comedy and horror. Family vacationing in the mountains is terrorized by local wackos. Pons Par, Matt Rogeski. Next up we have is a very creepy movie. It's pretty good. The Boy from Hell. A teenage boy is hidden at an orphanage by his mother to protect him against his father, who wants to use the boy's body to be reborn. Oh, is this a copycat of Chucky and Child's Play? To use the body? So, The Carrier. The main character is stricken with a horrible disease, but it doesn't affect him. It spreads to every inmate object that he touches. And then if another person touches the object, they are dissolved into it. That's creepy. The Carrier. The Cellar. A family moves into an old house in the Texas desert that is haunted by a Native American curse in the form of a ferocious creature that dwells underground. Monster horror, supernatural horror. The Cellar. The Chair. A psychologist, a psychiatrist, and a prison warden opened up a long-closed prison unaware that the ghost of an electrocuted convict haunts it. Oh yeah? The chair, the table, the sofa, the bed. See? You can make movies. The Last Slumber Party. Slasher horror. Linda, Tracy, and Chris are all a trio of teenage girls who decide to celebrate the last day of high school by having a slumber party at Linda's house. A few guys show up when a homicidal maniac shows up and kills people. Lone Wolf. A struggling rock band and other college students cope with the usual trials and tribulations of their young lives, such as determining what exactly is behind the recent full moon killings which have been attributed to wild dogs. The Moonlight Sonata. A female fashion model takes leave from the fashion business and goes to Finland, better known as Santa Claus, for a vacation. Little does she know there's a totally lunatic bunch of local hillbillies killing people. The Newly Deads. The owner of a lakeside resort murders a transvestite. 15 years later, a spirit comes back and starts killing honeymoon couples. Again, all these revenge films. So there's revenge films and slasher films in 1988. A lot of zombie films. The Occultist. A cyborg private eye is hired to protect a Caribbean president visiting New York City from sadistic sorcerers, where behind the lush beauty of the island lurks powers of darkness, so evil men never fought them. The Spider Labyrinth. Horror mystery. Alan Whitmore, a young American researcher, goes to Budapest to visit Professor Roth, with whom he collaborated on a secret project called In Texas while a mysterious killer is on the loose. The Stay Awake. A ghost of a serial killer executed for murdering students at a Catholic girls' school returns to the school to take revenge on the current student body. The Stay Awake. Supernatural horror and revenge. The Visitors. We love The Visitors. Frank, Sarah, and their 2 children have recently moved into a house of their dreams on the countryside. While conducting an experiment, Alan is killed, and Frank has to determine who killed the family. The Blob. I love this remake of The Blob. A deadly entity from a space crash lands near a small town and begins consuming everyone in its path. This movie is good. I love the special effects, and it's tense. It's very tense. The Brain. A psychologist with an increasingly popular TV show brainwashes his audiences using a giant living brain. Horror sci-fi. The Brain. I love it. It's total 80s, it's cheesy, and it's good. The Dreaming. A doctor treats a sick Aboriginal person who had defied a tribal taboo and visited a sacred cave. The doctor soon finds herself having disturbing dreams and finds herself involved in a 200-year-old mystery. The Dreaming. The Kiss. After the death of her mother, a teenage girl is faced with bizarre supernatural occurrences with her mother's estranged sister arrives and begins to infiltrate her and her father's lives. The Seventh Sign. Abby Quinn is eagerly awaiting childbirth, but is haunted by dreams where she suffers a miscarriage. When she decides to rent a room to a mysterious stranger, she realizes a chain of events that will unleash the end of humanity. The Seventh Sign. The Undertaker. A deranged undertaker kills various people to keep as his friends in a seedy funeral home. Very creepy, huh? He kills people and then keeps them as friends. Next up we have is The Unholy. A priest battles a demon that kills sinners in the act of sinning. Ben Cross, Hal Holbrook, The Unholy. This movie is quite good. Check it out. Has some good actors in it. It's very well made, but it's horror. The Witch's Sabbath. The freshly graduated psychiatrist David shall deliver an opinion about young Medina, who's on trial for murdering a hunter. The Witch's Sabbath. Drama and horror. The 13th Floor. As a child, a girl witnesses her father electrocuted a young boy. When she grows into an adult, the ghost of the murdered boy appears to her, and together they set out to expose the crimes of her father. The Carpenter. Slasher horror. A mad woman and her cheating husband hire men to fix up their new house. Mysterious carpenter Ed becomes her guardian angel, but he's actually an executed killer whose spirit has returned to finish the dream house he started. The Carrier. I believe I already covered The Carrier, but this movie is creepy because it's about aliens infecting people and killing people. So check out The Carrier. The Nest. Horror and sci-fi. Horrifying shocker as a biological experiment goes haywire when meat-eating mutant roaches invade an island community. The Nest. Look at that movie poster. Isn't that creepy? The People Across the Lake. Chuck and Rachel, tired of the urban grime and crime, move with their kids to a quaint lakeside village where all seems like paradise until corpses show up in the water. Dark comedy and horror, The People Across the Lake. Return of the Living Dead 2. Curious kids unearth the barrels that previously helped revive the dead, which proves the second time's an undead charm. Return of the Living Dead is scary good. I love it. Through the Fire. A young woman asks the policeman to help her find her missing sister. They find a medallion sought after by some worshippers of demon Moloch, a beast that may be invoked and wreaks havoc, but can it be stopped? To Die For. LA real estate agent Kate gets a new lease on life when she learns that her new client, a mysterious and handsome man named Vlad, is looking for a house isolated in the Hollywood Hills. Vlad, To Die For. Dracula. Touch of Death. A moody, middle-aged gigolo kills off women after he gets bored with dating them and uses their body parts for trophies and for consumption. Touch of Death. This is gruesome and gory. Transformations. Wolfgang is traveling in outer space when a monster, which he sees as a beautiful woman, appears in his spaceship and makes love with him. Horror sci-fi. Transformations is about aliens and killings. Twice Dead. A family moves into an old house. They start getting harassed by a gang who eventually invade the house while the parents are away and start terrorizing the kids. But they didn't account for the deadly supernatural presence in the house. I love it. Uncle Cyril. A surreal look at madness in a brooding Czech countryside mansion. Drama, fantasy, horror, and thriller. Uncle Cyril, featuring Peter Bruckner, Radslav Robinsky, and Peter Seffer. Uninvited. A cat infected with genetically engineered virus escapes from the lab and goes on a killing spree, finding its way on board a shady businessman's yacht loaded with young guests. So the cat's gonna go, row. Unmasked Part 25. Look at that mask. Jackson is a lonely serial killer who is really beginning to question the point of all his killing. Parody, comedy, drama, and horror. So this movie has a lot of kills. The Unnameable. College students check out a haunted house where in the 1800s an ugly monster called the Unnameable was trapped in a vault. So now they're going to unleash this monster and it's going to go on a killing spree. Watch. Vampire at Midnight. The vampire killer leaves his victims drained of blood while the detective tries to catch him. I love it when they find the bodies and there's no blood. What's wrong? There's no blood on the victims. I love it. Vampire on Bikini Beach. Two teenagers find a book called The Book of the Dead and soon discover that a vampire cult which needs the book to raise the dead so they can take over the world is after them. Vampire on Bikini Beach. Vampire in Venice. Professor Paris Catalano visits Venice to investigate the last known appearance of the famous vampire Nosferatu during the Carnival of 1786. Vampire horror. This movie's good if you like vampires. Vampire's Kiss. After an encounter with a neck biter, a publishing executive thinks that he's turning into a vampire. Nicolas Cage is brilliant. It's a dark comedy and horror. I love it. Watchers. I love it. Featuring Corey Haim. A boy takes in a stray dog, later discovering that it is an ultra-intelligent runaway being stalked by a dangerous creature from the same genetic research lab. Watchers. This movie is good. Waxwork. A wax museum owner uses his horror exhibits to unleash evil on the world. Comedy and horror. So if you like wax figures and revenge and killings and kill counts, you'll love Waxwork. Witchery. A photographer and others are stranded at a Massachusetts island hotel haunted by women in black. Featuring David Hasselhoff and Linda Blair. We love Linda Blair. Witchery. Witchcraft. Grace visits husband John's family manor. Peculiar events ensue Butler Ellsworth's suspicions. Horror. Witchcraft. and sorcery and boiling cauldrons bubbling around and killings. The Wood Chipper Massacre. 3 siblings begin to kill people with a wood chipper while their father is away. Comedy and horror. The Wood Chipper Massacre. This is kind of gory and creepy, and a lot of copycat killers. Zombie 3. When a terrorist body infected with a stolen chemical is cremated by the U.S. military, a virus is unintentionally released into the atmosphere over a small island. Zombie 3. After death. A woman goes back to the island where her parents were killed. They have been working on a cure for cancer and accidentally raised the dead by angering a voodoo priest. After death. Zombie horror and action. So if you like zombies, you'll love that movie. Those were the best horror films, all the horror films that were released worldwide, if I can speak, worldwide, in movie theaters worldwide, in the country, on cable TV, made for TV, that were released in 1988. There are a lot of demon movies, zombie movies, vampire movies, slasher movies. 1988 was a great year for horror movies, as you can tell by the number of movies released. So obviously the movie studios, independent movie studios, foreign movie studios know a cash king when they see it. And there's always money to be made with horror films. If you make them good enough or campy enough, people will go watch them and they'll spend their money to be scared, to have a good time. Obviously, there's some dud movies out there, but people love horror movies. So studios know you want to make instant money, especially around Halloween time, cater to the teenagers, back to school, when kids are graduating, summer camps. Horror films will never disappoint at the box office. Those were the best horror movies of 1988. What were some of your favorites from 1988? I know I covered a lot of these movies. Some of them you may have never heard of. Some you may have, but forgotten about. What were your favorite movies of 1988? Alright, I'm Tony. Thanks for watching Yesteryear TV. Stick around. We're going to wind up the decade of the 80s. Stay tuned for the best horror films of 1989. Then we're going to wrap up the entire decade of the best horror films of the 80s, featuring 1980 through 1989. So stay tuned for the next video, which will be the best horror films of 1989. Thanks everybody for watching and for your support, and I'll see you all in the next video.